Hello, this is Sammy from the Guild Clarity on Jaden REU, and welcome to the fourth video in my series of WorldofLogs tutorials. In this video I'm going to be looking at what I call the log viewer, which allows you to look at exactly what happened during any time period, exactly what happened, down to the second. So you use this to see, for example, what spells somebody cast inside a 5-second or 10-second period, to check that people were doing their jobs in certain periods, or if you want to improve, you can see when people use their cooldowns or what they're doing during crucial moments of the fight to really get the most output out of their characters. So I'm going to use this tool today to try and identify a mistake that was made in our raid today. It wasn't a huge mistake, it didn't wipe us, it was just a small mistake, and that was we had an explosion during a purple phase of Yorsage. That is to say that somebody reached 5 stacks and exploded. So I'm just on the dashboard of the Yorsage fight, and down here we can see damage taken by spell, deep corruption. So if I click that, I can see that it was Shark that exploded, hitting the other 24 members of the raid, each for approximately 64,000. Okay, so now the next point for me is I need to find out when that happened. So I know it was Shark that exploded, so I need to find out when it happened. So to do that, I'll go into Analyze Damage Taken. I'll click by spell, and then I'll pick any target. It'll be easier if I pick someone that doesn't take much damage throughout the fight, so I'll pick a healer. And then here, I can see on the graph, so I'll untick that. That's green phase, that's yellow phase, that's red phase, that's purple. So I can see it happened right near the end of the fight, just around 2:23. So I'm going to want to go back to the log browser. Okay, so here we can see an awful lot of information, and it can look a little bit intimidating because it's giving us everything for the entire fight. It's important to note the time, that's 2:18, and we can remember that the explosion occurred at around about 2:23. So we need to go back to any of these ones and set our time period. So it was around 2:23, so if we take sort of the 30 seconds before it and a few seconds after, set page to selection, and then go back into the log browser. Remove the show all queries and add our own queries. We're going to want heals where the target is Shark. Remember, it's very important that it's case sensitive, so you got to make sure you get those capital letters in, otherwise it won't work. We also want aura, so that's buffs and debuffs, where the actor is Shark and the spell is deep corruption. Remember, make sure you've typed it right. Now the thing with actor is basically if it's source or target, or both. I'm not really sure. So this would probably work if I put it in source, but I've put it in actor just to be safe. Save, and then if I click run, this gives us all of the heals that landed on Shark but in this time period. That's 2:22:49 right the way through to 2:23:10. So we can see here at 2:23:07, that's when the explosion happened. When deep corruption fades from Shark, that's when the explosion happened to the raid. So if we head up and count the heals that cause a stack, we see Divine Light and a Holy Shark, that's 2. Then we have a Divine Light here, another Divine Light, and then a Holy Shark, which causes the explosion. So it's a slight innocent mistake from Hydrogen, where he's pressed Holy Shark after a Divine Light just as a habit. As a Holy Paladin player myself, I fully understand, but this allows us to see that it was just an innocent mistake and not somebody perhaps mixing up their healing assignments and who maybe didn't understand the fight, for example. So as you can see, extremely powerful tool that shows us exactly what happened at any period of the fight. Similarly, you can sort of do it the other way around. So if we remove these two queries and add our own query, so if we want heals from the source of, let's say, Philly. So if we wanted to see what he did during this time period, we can see every single thing that he did. We can see his Earth Shield procs, Earth Living, and we can see his greater healing waves on the people in his group that were his healing assignment. So we only have 8 seconds where things happened. Obviously he wasn't a very busy bee during this period of the fight. You can see we just have 2 greater healing waves. So similarly we could do that for any of our healers. You can see a druid is a lot busier simply because they've got hots and efflorescences running on everybody to pull the healing off. Oh, and a blaze of life. I didn't think that trinket actually ever did anything. Apparently it does. You can see some nourish casts in here as well as the hots. So this is a very good way of learning the way that healers deal with certain phases. It's important to know sometimes, especially as a healer, to know what cooldowns people pop at what times in the fight, etc. It's also important as a DPS if you want to see how somebody is doing something. For example, if I head to the Dragon Soul rankings, if I head to Ultraxian, Unholy Death Knight, so if I want to see, I was going to show you the top one, but seeing as it's in a foreign language that won't really be much use. So if I go on this one, so I want to know, how did this person, Elensar, do 54.8k DPS? Then a very simple way for me to do that is to see how they opened up the fight. You could do the entire fight. In fact, let's just do the entire fight. So log browser, remove show all events, add query, hit, spellcast, aura, where the actor is Elensar. Click run. This gives us everything that happens to or by Elensar for the entirety of the fight. So if we scroll down the time, we see it starts at 49:23 seconds. Scroll all the way down. In fact, it doesn't even get to the end because it's too full. So obviously if I wanted to see the entire fight, I could change my query to only be on hits and auras, where the source was Elensar, and that will probably give me less things. See if I can get through to the end of the fight. 249.23, 251.08. So you see I get further into the fight. So this allows me to see how Elensar opened up on the boss. So we can see that he opened up with an icy touch. We can see that his trinket starts to proc, then a plague strike. The trinket continues to proc, and his other trinket procs, all within the first 2 seconds of the fight. It's important to keep yourself oriented with the time signatures. And basically this just allows you to see what spells they're casting. I mean, as an unholy DK, this means a lot more to me than it will to some other people, but you can see when they pop their cooldowns, what spells they're prioritizing over others, and in what order they're doing things. You can also see things like he's an engineer, he's gaining synapse strings. You can see how quickly he builds up 5 shadow infusions, and there's shadow infusion number 5, 18 seconds into the fight, which I wouldn't actually say is all that fast, but if I were to go through the entire log, I would be able to see why this guy does more damage than I do, and that is an important learning tool to try and improve yourself, is to look at what a better player, or a player that's achieved higher numbers, to see what they did and try and emulate it, or to understand why they did it, and maybe you can even improve on it further. So this is important from a DPS's point of view, but it's also very important for a tank to look to see when other tanks are popping their defensive cooldowns in order to mitigate damage. As a healer, when healers are popping their output cooldowns, to keep up with the incoming damage. Right, so as you can see, Log Browser, it's a bit intimidating, but you can pull an awful lot of information out of it if you know how to use it correctly. As always, if you have any further questions, you can drop me a PM or leave a comment on this video and I will always get back to you. Thanks for watching.